Hello guys, what is up? My name is Dylan. Welcome to the Popcorn Podcast. I hope everyone is doing fantastic. I hope everyone's had a great Christmas. It is that time of the year. We are officially transitioning into 2022, so it is time for me to look back on everything that I watched in 2021 and share with you guys my top 10 best movies, my favorite watches from this year. But of course, before we do get on into that main list, here are some honorable mentions that just missed out. Up first, we have David Lowery's The Green Knight, an art house approach to a classic Arthurian legend that is easily one of the most visually provocative and stunning films of the year. No Time to Die, the final film in the Daniel Craig saga of Bond films. The Last Duel, a film that sees Ridley Scott back directing medieval epics. Last Night in Soho, a film that sees Edgar Wright take us back to London in the 60s. Tick Tick Boom, a Netflix musical that once again proves Andrew Garfield to be one of the most talented actors working today. Someone who can basically do it all at this point. Palm Springs, one of the most refreshing and nuanced rom-coms I've seen in quite some time. Spencer, a biopic on Princess Diana and one that showcases Kristen Stewart at her very best, a big contender at award season no doubt. King Richard, another biopic starring Will Smith about the origins of Venus and Serena Williams' tennis stardom. The Witcher, Nightmare of the Wolf, a prequel anime film on Netflix that takes place in the fantasy world of The Witcher. Encanto, Disney's latest animated feature that I actually watched very recently and had a really heartfelt time with. The Night House, the best horror film of the year with a stunning performance from Rebecca Hall in the lead. Giulio Ducournau's Titan, or Titan, or however you want to call it. One of the most original and audacious pictures in recent years. I also want to quickly mention to you guys that I haven't actually gotten around to seeing everything in 2021. There are a couple of films that I would have liked to have seen before making this video. A few that come to mind are Come On, starring Joaquin Phoenix, The Power of Dog on Netflix starring Benedict Cumberbatch, and most recently I think The Tragedy of Macbeth starring Denzel Washington and Frances McDormand. All films that might have actually, made my top 10, but of course, unfortunately due to the timing of this video, I haven't gotten around to seeing it just yet. But the show must go on, so without further ado guys, here are my favorite watches, my top 10 favorite watches, I should say, of 2021. Coming in at number 10 guys is Raya and the Last Dragon. It wouldn't be a top 10 of the year list for me if I didn't have at least one animated feature to talk about. Raya and the Last Dragon seems to have gone over people's heads pretty quickly this year, but for me, I actually think it's one of my favorite animated films in recent years. Epic magical fantasy adventure films are just my cup of tea, so naturally I'm gonna have a little bit of bias towards this film, but just to summarize for you guys, the visuals on display are just to die for. The characters are bold, charming, but also imperfect and complex, and all brought to life by some really spot on voice acting, particularly from Kelly Marie Tran as Raya and Awkwafina as Sisu the Dragon. The world building also is really well done here guys. A lot of it reminded me of Avatar: The Last Airbender, one of my all-time favorite shows. Also the score here by James Newton Howard is just wonderful and really helps to establish the film's main themes of trust and hope. All in all, another brilliant entry here from Disney. In fact, if you guys want to check out some in-depth thoughts on why I think Raya and the Last Dragon is so great, I made a video essay earlier this year, so I will leave a link to it in the description box down below in case anyone is interested. Coming in at number 9, we have Zack Snyder's Justice League, otherwise known as the Snyder Cut, a film that could have only been made possible by us, the fans, and that is exactly what the Snyder Cut is. A 4-hour DC epic that is absolutely leagues ahead of the 2017 Whedon Cut, no pun intended. The most noticeable differences with this version of the film, aside from the more consistent tones, is just how much more fleshed out some characters are. The standouts here being Steppenwolf, who gets a big upgrade appearance-wise, but also from a character perspective. We're given a much better insight into the varying dimensions of the main conflict here. How Steppenwolf is only just a pawn for Darkseid, a foe that, I don't know about you guys, but I have been waiting for a long time to see in live action, and although he's not in the film, for that long, Snyder does really make the most of it. Both Cyborg and Flash as characters are also a lot more fleshed out this time around, particularly Cyborg, who you actually care about this time around as opposed to the previous version of the film. Ezra Miller's Barry Allen, although not quite as developed as Ray Fisher's Cyborg, gave us one of the best scenes, not just in this film, but maybe of the entire year, in my opinion. The scene in which the Flash phases through an explosion, a shockwave that essentially obliterates the entire planet, to only go and run back in time and reverse the effects. Guys, when I first saw this scene, I went absolutely nuts. Speaking of my favorite scenes, I did go and make a video essay counting down my top 5 favorite moments from the Snyder Cut, so if anyone is interested, I will leave a link to it in the description box down below. In fact, you know what? I think a lot of this video will be me shamelessly plugging previous videos that I made this year, so I'll make a list in the description box down below for any videos that I've made in correspondence with any of the films that appear on this list for you guys to check out if anyone is interested. But anyways guys, I don't know how likely it is anymore, but I would love to see this story and this world continue in the future. I'm still going to support this movement. I'm not going to give up hope, so restore the Snyderverse. Coming in at number 8 guys, we have Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. This film was an instant hit for me. From the moment I first saw it, it was easily in my top 10 for the MCU franchise. I think Destin Daniel Cretton as a director crafts such a beautiful and touching story that at its core is about the bond between family. I think Simu Liu absolutely kills it as Shang-Chi. I cannot wait to see where they take the character next. I loved the infusion of Chinese culture into the MCU. It really helped this film to feel really refreshing, and of course I absolutely loved how the cast included Hong Kong cinema legends like Michelle Yeoh and of course my boy Tony Leung. And of course guys, I cannot forget to mention the absolutely mesmerizing action sequences on display here in Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. The hand-to-hand fight choreography, the wide angles and long takes easily make the action here in Shang-Chi the very best of the MCU so far. Coming in at number 7 guys, we have Bo Burnham Inside. This Netflix comedy special, yes, I still consider it to be a film, is honestly one of the most fascinating, entertaining, beautiful, but also painful things I have seen all year, and I mean painful in a good way. Before watching Inside, I didn't really know much about Bo Burnham. I knew he was a comedian and I'd seen him in Promising Young Woman the previous year, but after watching this film, I think it's safe to say I went on a Bo Burnham binge. Inside is such an honest and profound look on the process of creating, on internet culture and society today, featuring some absolutely brilliant songs and incredibly innovative visuals, and just an all-round terrific powerhouse performance from the man himself, Bo Burnham, both from a comedic level and a dramatic level as well. If you've never seen anything by Bo Burnham, if you haven't even heard of Inside, I implore you to go onto Netflix and check this film, this comedy special out. It's gonna blow you away. Coming in at number 6, we have A Quiet Place Part 2. John Krasinski is back after his brilliant directorial debut, A Quiet Place, and in my opinion, he goes and outdoes himself with this sequel. A Quiet Place Part 2 expands the post-apocalyptic world that the Abbott family find themselves silently trying to navigate, where danger lurks around every single corner. The performances from Emily Blunt and Cillian Murphy are just fantastic, but this time around, it's the kids played by Noah Jupe and Millicent Simmons that really step up. The sound design once again is spot on and really helps to build the tension in the moments that matter the most. A Quiet Place Part 2 also has one of my favorite opening sequences of the entire year, and guys, all in all, this is just a fucking great follow-up to its predecessor and one that gets me itching to see Part 3. Coming in at number 5, we have Shiva Baby. Now, Shiva Baby isn't really a film I am sure too many of you guys have heard of. It is certainly not the most popular choice on this list, but nevertheless, it's one that I really connected with. The film centers on a girl called Danielle, who is a college student who attends a shiva with her mum and dad. A shiva is essentially a Jewish funeral service, and she also happens to run into her sugar daddy and his family as well. And you guys are probably thinking like, how the hell does this apply to me? Why am I connecting with this film? Well, I think I watched this film at more or less the perfect time in my life. I actually graduated from uni earlier this year, and sugar daddies aside, I really found myself connecting with the main character, Danielle. We've all been to those family events where people you haven't seen in forever are all constantly bombarding you with questions about your life and your future, and it can be a really, overwhelming and at times uncomfortable experience. The filmmaking here in Shiva Baby really impressed me. What the director is able to achieve in such a short amount of time, in such a limited amount of locations, is really great. It made for a really intense, disorientating, chaotic experience, and I think the whole family gathering premise here was spot on. So yeah, overall, Shiva Baby is just a really well done film that doesn't overstay its welcome. Coming in at number 4, we have West Side Story. Now, 2021 had no shortage of musicals, but for me, West Side Story was the best of them. Steven Spielberg is one of, if not my favorite filmmaker of all time. To put it simply, he is the guy who made me love movies in the first place. So I was naturally very excited to see his take on West Side Story. I actually studied some of the songs in GCSE music from the original film, so this is a musical that I am quite familiar with, and this version did not disappoint. It's acted and performed brilliantly, the standouts being Rachel Zegler and Ariana DeBose. I also really loved the aesthetic of this film and how it made you really feel as if you were watching a film that was made in the late 50s, early 60s. So on a technical level, guys, West Side Story is pretty much flawless. Steven Spielberg still got it, guys. Coming in at number 3, we have The Suicide Squad. James Gunn absolutely nailed it with this film. Not only is The Suicide Squad one of, if not the most ballsy, most batshit crazy, absolutely nuts film of the year, but it's one that actually works. I don't know about you guys, but I had a huge smile across my face right the way through this film. Fantastic musical choices, super entertaining characters, gorgeous visuals, a ton of heart, and the best Harley Quinn sequence in the entire DCEU thus far. Hats off to you, Mr. Gunn. Oh boy, we've come down to my top 2 films of 2021. See, even in this moment, I'm struggling to put one above the other. I just don't know anymore. Either of them can take the number 1 spot for all I care. God, some people aren't gonna like this decision, but here goes. Coming in at number 2, we have Spider-Man No Way Home. I think this was the most special film this entire year. You know some films that you watch and they just instantly become a part of you? Well, that's basically what the impact of No Way Home had on me. It's something that just exists as part of me now. It was one of the best experiences I've ever had in a cinema. I was basically in tears for the last hour, 45 minutes of the film. Seeing characters that I grew up with as a kid return after all these years. Guys, there's no other way to put it other than No Way Home was essentially a dream come true for me. I still would have made a few changes to some of the events that took place, how some of the characters entered into this movie, but overall I'm just so happy that they've finally begun to take Tom Holland's Spider-Man seriously and set him on the path for some classic Spider-Man stories that we all know and love. Guys, there's no way I'm going to be able to give you all of my thoughts in this limited time I have for this video, so of course, if you want to check out more of my in-depth thoughts on No Way Home, you know where to find them. And finally, guys, coming in at number 1, if you've been watching the channel this year, you will have probably already guessed it by now. Coming in at number 1 for my best movies, my favorite watches of 2021 is none other than Denis Villeneuve's Dune. I mentioned that Spider-Man No Way Home was one of the best experiences I'd ever had in a cinema. Well, the same can be said for this film, but for slightly different reasons. From a technical perspective, I think Dune is flawless. The visuals and the sound design alone deliver what I think is pure cinematic brilliance. As of when I'm shooting this video, Dune is the film that I've seen in IMAX the most amount of times this year, just because of how powerful and how visceral the experience of it was. I was also lucky enough to attend a Q&A with director Denis Villeneuve. That was a night that I will remember forever, since he is one of my all-time favorite filmmakers. I don't know what else to say, guys. I absolutely love this film. The cast is exceptional. I love the score by Hans Zimmer. I think it's one of his best in years. I cannot wait for part 2, guys. It's such a shame that it's in late 2023, which seems like in forever. But I have no doubt that the film will not disappoint. So guys, that is it. Those are my top 10 films of 2021. As I mentioned before, my number 1 and 2 choices were like this. As far as I'm concerned, they're both number 1s, both completely different films, and both of which mean a lot to me. I absolutely love both Spider-Man No Way Home and Dune, so if you thought Spider-Man should have been on top and Dune second, I don't blame you. But in the end, I just went with my head instead of my heart. But anyways, guys, comment down below what your favorite films of 2021 are. I would really love to know. Also, look forward to my next video, which will be my top 10 most anticipated films of 2022. If you did enjoy this video, guys, be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel, of course, if you are new. Guys, thank you so much for checking out the video, and to all of you guys who have stuck with me in 2021 this year on the channel, it means a lot, and I will continue to put out new content, new videos in 2022, so hopefully that is something you can look forward to. But for now, I'm going to say peace out, Happy New Year, and I'll catch you very soon in the next video.